Someone asked, it seems like the sermons in Acts are pretty short. Why do so many modern preachers preach so long? It wasn't someone from Desert Springs Church that asked that, but...
Wow.
That should be an easy answer. That's
I'm starting to process, okay, did they think I was preaching long and so they wrote the question? I actually wasn't preaching, but you know what I mean. First of all, those are summaries. So we don't have the full what was said. You got the bones. So you got some bones and a lot more would have been done. Otherwise, you can finish his discourse of the Athenian before the Areopagus. It was a 4-minute talk. So I can't imagine that that's actually what it was. I think he had to make an argument. He had to prove it. He had to solidify it. He probably had to back up.
They weren't in a hurry.
Yeah, it was a different thing.
Culture.
So that's one thing. I will say this about contemporary preaching. It's not so how long your pastor preaches as it is there should be an arc of expectation between the pastor and the congregation. And if you as a pastor are violating what is the normally understood arc of what this is in this church, then you're gonna bounce yourself into trouble. So that I have some friends that preach almost an hour every week, and their congregations are happy and healthy, and they love it. I preach between 32 minutes and probably 38 minutes. Now, if I stretch it out, it might be 45, but when I do that, I actually feel like I've violated that rhythm of our life together, and I can hear about it. So it's really more of expectation than it is what's correct. You should throw on that. You get to see this a lot more.
It's partly expectational, right? And that is culture dependent and individual history. I mean, in French Canada, when I grew up, Baptist pastors got thrown in jail. I was beaten up as a maudit Protestant. It was pretty ruthless. As recently as 1972, we only had 35 churches and a population of 6.5 million, none of them with more than 40 people. And then in 8 years, we grew from 35 churches to 500. And there was taste of revival. I can remember preaching for an hour and a half and people asking for more, then getting down on their knees to pray and praying till midnight and beyond. And so nobody was saying, hey, it was over 38 minutes, time out. So there are a lot of different dynamics. You go to a culture like Africa, like most countries in Africa, it's not Africa as if Africa is one culture, but many countries in Africa, starting on time is different and ending is very different.
It drives me nuts.
And so there are different expectations. You go to Russia, and the church services are long. If you ask for people, anybody wants to quote any verses, they'll want to quote chapters at you. I mean, so there are different expectations. And then you mentioned Dick Lucas. He's got a judgment on this one too. What he used to say is, he probably still says it. He's 89 now, but he's still preaching. And what he says is, some people are 20-minute preachers, some people are 30-minute preachers, some people are 40-minute preachers, some people are hour preachers. He said, the problem is that most people think they're longer preachers than they are. He says, if you're a 20-minute preacher, prepare your sermon, then shut up after 20 minutes. But if you're an hour preacher and people are still gripping the seat of their chairs, then you're robbing the people if you don't give them their hour. So I can think of a man, he's just recently gone home to glory from Mark Ashton at Stags. In my view, he was one of the best 25-minute preachers I ever heard. He was just stunningly good in 23 to 25 minutes. He was just very able. And a couple of times we invited him to speak at a conference where he was expected to speak for 45 minutes. He was, so-so. Whereas Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones, it took him 10 minutes to get his motors going. I can remember hearing him, and for my sins, thinking in my youthful arrogance, this guy's overrated. and then 10 minutes in, he had me, and suddenly an hour had gone by, and I'd met with God. And what do? There's such different, you can't establish rules with that kind of complexity, Yeah. So the variations in gift and in expectation and in culture and maturity and all kinds of things.
Every preacher would do well to remember the words of Mike Bullmore, though. A sermon is not a storage container for everything you learned this week about your text.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.